Hello YouTube. Whoop. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Today I want to talk to you about the concept of WYRD, in case there's people who've joined the channel recently. We haven't talked about WYRD for a long time, but of all of the indigenous shamanic belief systems, the Germanic pre-Christian tribal understanding of the universe, I think is the most profound when it comes to time and space. So according to my ancestors, the universe was woven into existence by three giantesses. And here's, I don't know where this is, somewhere in Scandinavia. We have the three giantesses, and they're weaving this thread to create the universe. So in science, we live in three-dimensional space-time. So you can't separate the two. You can't separate space from time. It's space-time. So if you have space, you're going to have time. If you have time, there's going to be space. So space-time is woven together by three strands. And these three strands we know of as past, present, and future. But that's really a bad translation. Space-time is actually, the past is called origins, the present is called immediacy, and the future is called debt, D-E-B-T, what you're going to pay. So past is origins, present is immediacy, and the future is debt. So we can see the Indo-European idea that debt and karma. So people misunderstand what karma is. People throw around the word karma as though it, it indicates something bad, indicates what you should do. That's not what karma is. You have karma, and you have dharma. And these are often confused and conflated. So dharma is your soul purpose, what you're meant to do, what your soul came here to do. I'm looking at the playback and it looks like it's stuck. Let me double check that. I don't want to talk into emptiness. So what the hell, man? Okay, there we go. All right. I always get this. YouTube is always giving me some kind of message saying that it's having some issues about something. Anyway, we'll just keep going. So dharma is what your soul came here to do, and karma is nothing more than the result of your actions. Karma means actions. That's all it means. And the goddess Kali, if you've ever seen pictures of her, she wears a skirt made of severed human arms. It looks horrible, but arms represent work, the actions that you take. And so she's wearing these. She is the goddess of the planet Saturn, which has to do with time, which has to do with karma, which means she is telling you that your actions are things that you will end up getting some kind of reward or punishment for. So really it's just the result of the actions that you take. It's the consequences of anything. You know, and as I've said many times before, everybody talks about karma as though it's a bad thing. But the fact of the matter is that you are experiencing far more positive karma than negative. If you are alive, you're not dead, that is a positive karma. Your heart is beating properly, that is a result of positive karma. Your lungs are functioning, you have food, you have clothing, you have a place to live, you have positive karma. Now, we only worry about the few things that are bothering us. You have a slight ache or a pain in your body, that takes up your whole focus, and you think, oh, there must be something negative going on in my life. Well, that is one consequence of many. So there's dharma and karma. But in the shamanic tradition of my ancestors, we have this concept of WYRD. WYRD, nope, doesn't look good. All right, still there. All right, so anyway, I see Rami Mubarak. Welcome to the channel. This is a question and answer. So the way this works is, first, spend time listening to the lecture. Don't just drop comments or drop questions. If you have a question, write the word question, and then have your question beneath it. So I'm gonna erase your question because you haven't bothered to even listen to what we're talking about yet. So ask questions about what I teach. If you want to talk about the connection between 444 and Babylon, find somebody who teaches that and ask them. Okay? So I'm going to remove that comment just for now. Probably new to the channel, so you don't know the rules, but that's how I like to do things. All right, so I'm just going to keep talking, and YouTube is going to do whatever it's going to do. So, WYRD, that which has been woven. What I really want to focus on here is the idea that if you want to get the most out of your experience in this lifetime, it's important to understand how the illusion of time, how that feeds into the illusion of the self. Let's say, for example, you have difficulty responding constructively to other people. Let's just give that as an example. You fight with people, you pick fights with people, you misunderstand people, you overreact, something like that. That's something fairly common a lot of people go through. So that is an indication that there is a program that's running underneath the surface all the time. Something about feeling unworthy, feeling judged, some kind of negative self-judgment that you picked up somewhere in your life, usually probably in infancy or childhood. That's where most of it is picked up. I mean, the fact is that most of the stuff that we deal with, we got between the ages of 0 and 4 years of age. But sometimes there are things that happen that are profound and may even be traumatic, and it sets up a response. You get, somebody you care about abandons you or rejects you or betrays you or hurts you. That can create a wound that you continuously respond from. So all of that is an illusion, because you have taken on a narrative about yourself, and that narrative is now defining not only everything that you think about yourself, but how you think about others, your relationship to others, and how the world is. And so, of course, you're going to keep repeating that. But if you understand the concept of what time is, then you can take more charge in every single moment. And if you understand that every single moment is infinity, your entire life is right now. There really only is the immediate moment of now. The idea of past and future is really an illusion. Okay, so according to my ancestors, you had 3 aspects, 3 strands, 3 threads that wove together 3-dimensional space-time. And that was origins, immediacy, and debt. Past, present, and future. So the past is called origins. So imagine, again, you are sitting in time which is always the present, because can you experience anything other than the present? Nobody ever can. You're always in the present moment. You're thinking about the past. You're remembering what you think the past was, or you're thinking ahead towards the future, but you never ever get to the future. The future is always in front of you. The past is always behind you. There's only the present moment. You know, I was thinking about this concept. There was a movie, I can't remember what it was. There was a movie I hadn't seen in years, and I had remembered this one scene in this movie, and whatever the person's one line was, I remember it being very intense and emotional and expressive, and so I would always sometimes think about that movie in that moment. And I hadn't watched it in probably 20 years or so. And I saw it on Netflix, and so I watched it, and I was waiting for that one line in that one moment, and it came and went, and I went, what happened? It wasn't anywhere near what I remembered it to be. And so we do that. We remember the past. The past is really a recollection, and we are reconstructing what we think we saw or experienced. And it's always an interpretation. It's never really 100% accurate. So the past is called origins, and origins is the story that you tell yourself that determines and teaches you what to do in this moment. And if you are not aware of the fact that there is a past story, a narrative that is defining and telling you what actions to take, if you're not aware of that, then you will continue to just be a puppet of your past programming. And the future will only be you having to live out the consequences of those actions. So you have origins, immediacy, and debt. And so your present moment is simply just walking into the consequences of the actions that you've taken. The actions that you've taken are simply your programming living itself out. And so if you want to talk about, the cycle of karma, that's the cycle of karma. When people talk about becoming enlightened and achieving liberation, what most people think is that it means that you achieve freedom from reincarnation, and that's really not accurate. Because what difference does it make if you become free of reincarnation, but you're in some other form, in some other dimension, living out that same process of taking actions based on what your programming keeps telling you to do? What difference does it make? So you can live in human form and be reincarnated, and as long as you are determining in every single moment from your true authentic self the choices, the beliefs, the actions that you take, then it doesn't matter whether you are in a human form or not. It also doesn't matter if you're out of a human form. For the longest time, people came on my channel and were, I don't know if this is no longer a thing. Maybe people haven't talked about it I don't see it as much. But the whole idea of escaping the matrix. And there were people who were obsessed with the idea that there was a literal portal that you could go to, that you could escape this, what they believed to be a computer program that they were trapped in. And I always found it interesting that those portals were someplace that were impossible to get to, like the North Pole or the South Pole. And then people could talk about it, but then not do anything about it. And I would always say, well, if the escape hatch for the Matrix is in the North Pole, trust me, I will find a way to get there. What are you doing? Why aren't you doing everything in your power to get to the North Pole? It's a possible thing. You can do it. Well, it's because people don't want to. They want to stay in their misery. They want to complain about it. They don't really want control over their life. They don't really want to change. They want to complain about it. Whatever it is, whatever conspiracy theory you're into. By the way, if you are into a conspiracy theory, that's all it is. Your conspiracy theory is an excuse for you to stay miserable. There's a payoff in staying miserable. The payoff in staying miserable is that on an unconscious level, you think you're being accepted. It's really twisted. But everything. So before we get into past, present, and future, let me tell you what the one thing is that is driving your entire life. The one thing that is driving every single person's entire life is the need to survive. And survival, the most primal urge for survival is not food, it's not shelter, it's not clothing, it's not sex. The most primal drive for acceptance is love, for survival, I meant to say. The most primal drive for survival is being loved. Now, being loved is different for different people based on, the first 4 years of their life. If you grew up in an abusive home, then love for you is being abused. If you grew up in a dysfunctional home, then love for you is dysfunction. If you grew up in a home where you were neglected, then neglect will mean love for you. Because your primary caregivers, they set the tone, they give you the definition. Now, we can look back on it and say it's dysfunctional, it's this and that, but we're really just a hair away from being cavemen. And it was a very real thing in Stone Age times and before. If the parents, for whatever reason, could not take care of a child, the child would just be left. They would just simply leave it on a rock somewhere. There was, if you weren't constantly being protected and loved and cared for, you would die. And in fact, we know that infants, what will kill an infant the most quickly is neglect. If you do not love an infant, it can end up in the death of that child. Even if you feed it, clothe it, keep it warm, if you neglect it, it will die. So this is your primary survival instinct, is to get love and acceptance and approval. Because without it, you can't live, you can't function. And if you are programmed in such a way where you're rewarded by your parents for being an individual, having your own thoughts, your own feelings, and being unique, then what will happen is when you go out into the world, you will instinctively be successful because you will have an internal locus of control where what other people say and do won't determine how you judge yourself. And you will be able to self-nurture and self-love regardless and accept all of your feelings. Whereas if you haven't been, let's say a child who's been neglected, that child will spend the rest of their life being dependent upon or feel dependent upon other people's thoughts and feelings and judgments. This is why people stormed the Capitol. No doubt in my mind. Every single one of those people, if I sat them down and if they were honest with me and if I asked questions, I'm going to find out that they're deeply insecure, that they have an external locus of control, which means they are constantly being stimulated by outside events. Outside events define them. Somebody says something or doesn't say something, or they think somebody is saying something, or they think somebody is doing something, and that determines their actions. They have no control over their actions. They can only respond to their impulses. And so, as I've said before, enlightenment is one thing. It is having all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, all of your impulses, all of your desires, and accepting every single one of those thoughts, feelings, and impulses without judgment, and yet having the ability to take constructive action, sometimes directly opposite whatever thoughts and feelings and impulses you may be having. That is enlightenment, nothing else. We've got it backwards. People think enlightenment is when you feel good all the time and therefore you act lovingly all the time. There's plenty of people out there with loving feelings who are very destructive and very selfish and very narcissistic. So it's not about how you feel. Consciousness is just that, being consciously aware of what is actually going on. All right, so what does this have to do with space-time? So according to this understanding, we have these three giantesses, past, present, and future: origins, immediacy, and debt. And these three are creating the universe. So the universe is manifested as a result of your moment by moment choices. So we can boil everything down to choice. If you don't feel you have choice in your life, then you will be trapped into that cycle of karma, where you have an impulse, you have your past narrative, which tells you who you are and what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to react. You may have an intense feeling as a result of that, and then you will act on that. That will create a consequence, and that consequence will then further define your definition of the universe. Oh, they're doing it to us. Oh, the universe is full of sin, whatever it is. But if you could understand that you yourself are infinite, that you yourself are God, that if there was a God in the universe, it would be you. Then if you are God, that means that you have power in every single instant moment to create your universe the way you want it to be. So if your universe isn't the way you want it to be, then who's responsible if you're God? If you're God, who's responsible? You are. You are creating everything in every single moment. So that leads me to the next question. Somebody asked on the channel, I'll find it and I'll read it exactly. The exact question was, let me get to it here. It's an understandable question. The question was, how can each person be the most powerful one God? It's hard for me to imagine that every person's soul is the one God, because then there would be billions of one gods fighting with each other, working with each other, ignoring each other, loving each other, etc. Could you explain that? So no, I can't explain it. I live in a three-dimensional limited universe. How can I possibly explain something where every single individual is the one creator God of the universe? How can I possibly explain that? I can't explain it in three-dimensional terms. But there's a lot of things we can't explain about our universe. According to physics, according to science, we live in infinite numbers of timelines. So anything that you can imagine about yourself, if you can imagine, just imagine in your mind where you live in a universe where you are 100 feet tall. If you can imagine yourself living in a universe exactly like this, except that you are president of the world. If you can imagine anything, according to science, it must be happening somewhere. There is a timeline where everything is happening. So every possible permutation of reality is happening simultaneously, one on top of the other. Can you explain that? I can't explain that. But according to physics, that's what must be going on. We live in multiple dimensions. So there are, I don't know how many dimensions there are. Some people say there are 9 dimensions. How can we only be experiencing one when there are multiple dimensions going on all the time? Are there infinite numbers of universes? I can't explain that either. When you get inside of a black hole, all of the laws of physics break down, so we don't know what's inside of a black hole. Yet the black holes are a huge, huge influencing factor on our entire universe. So you can't use your 3-dimensional limited intellect to figure out things that are beyond that. So when I talk about operating from the soul, bear in mind that the soul is a traveler. The soul is a tourist. The soul is observing this tiny 3-dimensional reality that you exist in. So trying to use your intellect to figure things out is like somebody living in a 2-dimensional world trying to imagine a 3-dimensional world. They can't imagine it. They've never experienced it. If you've never seen color before, like if for you there's only grades of black and white, then if I talk to you about what this cobalt blue car just drove past, you're not going to know what that means. How can I possibly explain to anybody what it's like for every single one of us being omnipotent, the source of all life, the source of the universe? I can't explain it. I know that it's true. I know that if I operate from that understanding that I am the one creator God of the universe, that I am infinite, that I am beyond time and space, that everything in my universe is my own creation. If I operate from that assumption, my life goes, in a really good fashion. It's not that I'm free of challenges, because that's not the case. I do have challenges. I do have issues and negative experiences. But my life always ends up improving as long as I put the discipline towards that. That's what these things are all about. That's what this is about, that's what all this stuff is about. I do these practices because they keep me in that reality. This one especially, when you're doing this and this one. These practices keep you in connection to the soul. Because remember, the intellect is a computer program. It's a software program. The intellect is what allows you to differentiate between things. What side of the street do you drive on? What is up? What is down? What is hot? What is cold? What is good? What is bad? That's what the intellect does, because that allows you to function within the 3-dimensional matrix that we live in. But you think about, how you view things. You have an eyeball. That eyeball has one hole in it. And if you go back and you look in biology, you look at how eyes were developed, you realize how limited our senses are. So every animal that has an eyeball, especially an eyeball with one iris in it, like we have, the eyeballs started out as little tiny creatures that were swimming around in the soup. They needed to be able to differentiate between light and dark. And so on their little foreheads, before they had anything else, these glands started to be created where there were receptors that would respond to light. And so if they would know if they were close to the surface, because it would be lighter, and they would be further down if it was darker, and they needed to know that for their survival. And those things, those flat light sensors, started slowly turning into cups, and then they turned into balls. That's all that you have. You have this little light receptor that's turned into a ball, and it has an opening on it. So you look out your eyes and you think that's what reality is, and it's not. That's just your perception of it. I mean, you look at other animals that have different irises. You know, like horses have irises like this, so they can see what's behind them and what's in front of them. They see things completely differently, but that's all they know. So your intellect is just designed to help you, give you enough information about limitations so that you can function, but it doesn't give you an understanding of anything other than that. Your soul is infinite. So trying to figure out your soul from your intellect is a waste of your time. Might be fun. Philosophers do it all the time, but if you ever read philosophy, they just go on and on and on and on and on, and they never, same thing with the spiritual philosophy. I mean, Buddhists, you listen to Buddhists talk about the nature of the self or the no self or what, I mean, they will get so lost in such intellectual, masturbation. It's like, yeah, so and what am I supposed to do with that information again? How does that make my life any better? So how is it that we can be omnipotent and the world is filled with a bunch of omnipotent beings? I don't know how that works. The only thing that I know about all of that is that if I operate from that assumption that everything in my reality is my own creation, then I have the power to change things. I have the power to improve things. And the only other thing that I really know is that I do not have the power to control other people. So even though you have created me, this is true, you have created me. Those of you watching me, you're watching me because you created me for some need that you have. And there's been times quite often where I will come and do a video and I'll get an email from somebody, or a comment, I'll get a comment from somebody who says, I was just thinking, I hope Mahadeva makes a video about, and then that same day you made a video about that very same thing. So you're creating me for whatever your need is. For those of you who dislike me for whatever reason, you don't like what I say, you don't like what I do, you've created me so that you can face that and overcome that. If I tell you what you've been waiting to hear, then the knowledge within you has manifested me to serve that purpose in your life. So it is true that every being in the world is your creation. Except that you don't have the power to determine what they do. And yet, at the same time, according to Huna, you can heal somebody simply by viewing them within yourself as being perfect. If if somebody's in your life and, find out whatever their limitations are, they're selfish, they're miserable, they're unhappy, they're whatever it is, whatever judgment you have about them. If you then take that person and if you spend enough time imagining them being perfect, not for you, not in a selfish way, I want them to do this for me, I want them to do that for me. That's not what I mean. If you imagine them being completely individuated and empowered and happy within themselves, and having no connection to you. According to Huna, if you're able to do that without any attachment, then that person will heal. That person will become what you imagine. So I can't explain how that all works. How is it that we all have infinite agency and at the same time I can't control anybody else? I don't know how that works. I just know that it does. So if people are determining your reality, that's your choice. So again, coming from the idea of locus of control. So the fully enlightened person has an internal locus of control, which means that nothing and nobody determines how they feel or how they act. Nobody can make you do anything, feel anything. You are completely responsible for your own emotional and mental happiness. Nobody's going to give it to you. That is an internal locus of control. External locus of control, other things outside of you can affect you and determine what you think, what you feel, and what you do. So this is everything we're working towards. My experience is that the reason why I've chosen this path is because, number one, it feels good. So let me just tell you, doing these practices feels really good to me. It's better than any drug I've ever experienced. When I do these practices, my body gets healthy. I feel comfortable within myself. I feel happy. And that's the main reason why I do it. But I've also found that by doing this practice, I operate from my soul, which means that I learn as I go through life, I learn to, like Dr. Manhattan here, I learn to get rid of the external narrative of who I am. And I operate more and more from the internal, authentic narrative of my soul, which is infinite. Where you want to be is you want to be in a place where your human personality, your name, all the things that limit you, because in order to have a human body, in order to have a human personality, you must be limited. But that is a cloak that you take on and that you put on and you take off. And that is where we want to be. We want to be in a place where we choose what our reality is. And the challenge is, at what point does that become denial? Because as you know, I'm not interested in denial. Pretending something isn't there. I want to look at objective reality. I want to experience and know what objective reality is. And I want to be willing to be ruthless with myself, change myself, and be willing to alter anything within me, get rid of any attachments that I have about who I am or about anything else, in order to align myself with objective truth, objective reality. So I'm not interested in denial. But I also am not interested in having anything outside of me determine my reactions, my thoughts, my experience of myself. All right? So I'm sort of talking around it. I'm not really saying everything that I want to say, but we've got this idea of WYRD where you live in the present moment. Your present moment determines your future. And your future will determine your past. Does that make sense? So you're living in the present moment, and let's say you make the decision that aliens, you make the decision to adopt a belief that aliens have created this false matrix for you to live in, therefore you are a slave to this computer program called the Matrix. That is going to determine your actions. You will then take actions based on the belief that you are a limited prisoner in this unjust, unhappy universe. So you're going to take actions based on that. Those actions are probably going to be things that cause you harm later, that you will have to live through. So your actions reaffirm your narrative. So you can change your past right now by changing your narrative. If your narrative is, as I've said, that you believe that you're in this limited matrix and you're a victim of the whims of others, then that is going to create your past. That's your narrative. That's your past now. You've just now created it from that belief that you've continued to invest in the moment. And then that will create your future. Your future will create the debt or the consequences of that action. So if you end up, doing something illegal because of that, then you end up in prison. Then that's going to continue to be your narrative, and it will reinforce for you, because you'll say, see, I did this to free myself, and all it did was it got me in jail, and so that just proves that life isn't fair, and so when I get out of here, I'm going to rob a bank. And so then you'll just keep living that. Your narrative creates everything. But if you are in this moment and you change the narrative right now, like if you make the choice right now in this moment that you will determine your reality from your soul, even if you don't know what that is, just making that determination, you're starting to put your origins, your past starts to shift, starts to become something else. And that determines how you react in the future, which will then determine the consequences, and you'll have positive consequences, which will continue to change your narrative of the past. So before I open it up to questions, I'm going to share with you we're going to sort of shift gears here. I want to share with you a powerful meditation to understand how you can go back in time and get some of your power back. So I'd like for you to bring to mind something that somebody in your life has done which you still look back on with a lot of negative feelings. It could be something that your parents did, could be something that your parents said, it could have been, you got your feelings hurt, your girlfriend or your boyfriend cheated on you or something like that. I want you to think of one instance that you still think about years later, that still bothers you, that still angers you or hurts you. And what you're going to do is you're going to go and change that narrative, because that's part of your narrative. That's part of your origins. That's part of your past, which determines your actions in the present. So you're going to get your energy back from that situation. Because if you're still thinking about it, it's been a couple of years, 5, 10 years, you're still thinking about what they said and what they did. And it is still defining your experience of who you are. That means that your energy is trapped in that moment. And understand that in your unconscious mind, there is no such thing as the past. There's no such thing. If you're holding on to something, it didn't happen in the past in terms of your unconscious, it's still happening. It's happening every single moment of every day. It never goes away as long as you are holding on to it. And as long as it defines who you are, it's not in the past, it's in the present. So we are going to fix that. So you're going to remember that scenario, whatever it was. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go back and think about that. You don't have to do this right now, but I want you, if you need to, pause this and take notes, go do that. So you've got that instance in your mind. You are then going to remember that, and you're going to start this exercise by activating your right brain, which is associated with your left side. Your left side is associated with your right brain. And your right brain is the emotional side. So what ends up happening when we go through something traumatic, we tend to shove the emotions down, and we tend to get into our left brain. So we tend to think about it, we tend to make judgments about it. Anger, judgment, these kinds of things are left brain things, because it's opposite. Your protective side, your right side, right? So we're going to tap into the right brain, which is the feminine part of your body, the left side of your body, so that you can have the emotions without any judgment. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to do at least 3 minutes of a breath meditation. And it's a real simple meditation. You're going to take your thumb You're going to block off your right nostril, and you're going to inhale through the left nostril. And you're going to block off the left nostril and exhale out the right. You're just going to keep doing that. Okay? You're going to do that for 3 minutes at least. I just did 2 breaths and I'm already loopy from it. It'll change your experience. You will get out of your defensive mind and you will be in more of a receptive emotional state, and you won't be as judgmental about your feelings. All right, so at least 3 minutes. You can go up to 5 minutes or 10 minutes. The longer you do it, the more connected you're going to be with your left side of your body, your right brain, your emotional side of your being. Then when you've done that, you're then going to imagine the scene in front of you. So you're going to be outside as an observer, and you're going to imagine yourself in the past, whatever it is that's happening to you. And you're going to experience that. And then what you're going to do is, with that in your mind, with that picture in your mind, you're going to start with your head turned all the way over your right shoulder, and you're going to inhale as you turn and look over the left shoulder. Okay, that's the inhale. And then the exhale is good. You're going to exhale back to where you were. You're going to keep doing that. Okay? Over and over and over again. And this you're going to do for, if you want to set a timer, you can. You can set it for 11 minutes. That's a symbolic number for the mind. 11 means infinity. So it symbolically puts you in a place of being in a state of no time. And what you're going to do is, as you see the experience, you are going to, with your breath, pull your energy back into your body. So as you inhale, as you're looking at the scene, you're going to imagine energy coming through your breath from that point in time back into your body. And on the exhale, you're going to release the other person's energy that's been put into you. Okay, so on the inhale, you take back your energy that was stolen. And on the exhale, you release the energy that was put into you. So I was thinking about this today. There was something that happened when I was in college that had a huge impact, absolutely life-changing impact on me. And it was, I was a freshman in college, and I was in the theater department, and I had done something that I don't think anybody had ever done up until that point. I could be wrong about that, but that was the way it was, the way I remember it. As a freshman, I ended up landing lead roles in main stage productions. And those were usually held for the graduate students. So the freshmen were the people that were supposed to be, running the lights and doing all the grunt work, while the graduate students, those getting their masters in theater, were acting, the lead roles. But I was getting cast in these lead roles, and it was really upsetting the cart. But it was a big accomplishment. And so I had my parents came to see me perform in this main stage production, in this university theater department production. And as I was in the dressing room, some of you may remember this story, I've told it before. As I was in the dressing room putting my makeup on, I heard the dean of the department outside of the dressing room. I heard the dean of the department coming down the hallway in a loud voice saying, "You're Michael Denny's parents?" And then he went on for what seemed like forever for me, going on about how I was the most amazing actor he'd ever seen, and they should be so proud of their son. He's accomplished so much. He's going to be so successful. He's going to be a big star. You watch. He's amazing. And in the dressing room, like, oh my God, finally I'm going to get my parents' approval. Finally, they're going to see that I'm whatever it was I wanted from them. And I was so happy about that because now there was undeniable evidence. The dean of the department, there was nobody that had more clout in that university department could have said that. Nobody. Right? So I went and I did the performance and the clapping and the standing ovation and et cetera, and I come off, really high and really expecting afterwards. My parents are there, and after I come off stage, I'm waiting for my parents to laud me with all kinds of compliments and nothing. Just crickets. Just totally nothing. And then there was this talk about where we were going to eat. So we were going to go eat at Coco's restaurant down the street. So I was going to go take my makeup off and, put back normal clothes, and then we'll go. And as I'm getting ready for this, I'm wondering what the hell's going on? Why was there so much tension? What the heck? I didn't know what was going on. Get in the car, driving over to the restaurant, still nothing, just silence. There's just this tension in the car. And I'm really wondering what the hell's going on. And my dad says, over the shoulder, he says, well, you're not there yet. That's the best my dad could do for a compliment. We get into the restaurant and we sit down, and I'm really uncomfortable, and there's all this tension, and everybody's silent. And my dad is making dad noises. You know what dad noises are? My dad's doing that. And my mom leans over and she gets this really nasty smirk on her face, and she says, so why do you do it? Is it for the applause? Do you love the attention? That determined the rest of my adult experiences. And the rest of my adult experiences, I co-founded a theater company. I auditioned. I did bit parts in TV and film, and I never made it. And I destroyed opportunities. I could have been a very successful comedian. I had invitations to go to Las Vegas, and I turned all those things down because I was a real actor, and I completely sabotaged my career. All the while working my ass off, working so hard I put myself in the hospital with kidney stones and working 3 jobs and running a theater company and all that. And I attribute it to that one experience. And so what I have been doing over the years is doing, among other things, this exercise to take my energy back. So your narrative, you take on other people's negative energy. So I not only gave my parents all that energy because I had an agenda, an understandable one. I wanted them to be proud of me. I wanted their emotional and psychological support. It would have been, if that had gone in a different way, if they had responded in a very positive way, that might have completely shifted my narrative, and who knows, I would have become the next Brad Pitt or whomever. There's no way of knowing. I don't regret any of that. I'm just sharing with you how this stuff works. So I gave them my energy, wanting their approval, and my parents, especially my mom, injected a bunch of really negative energy into me, which I held on to. We all do this. So I want you to create a scenario where you are giving back the negative energy that was given to you and taking back your energy from that situation. So again, you inhale through the left nostril, exhale out the right. Do that for at least 3 minutes or as long as you want, and then go into an 11-minute meditation where you, seeing in your mind's eye this scenario, you inhale and you turn your head to the left. Take your energy back and then release the negative energy, exhaling to the right. Okay? So there's a practical, energetic practice that you can use to change your narrative, change your origins, because your origins determine your actions in the present. The actions in the present determine the consequences you will live through. The consequences you live through will once again create your narrative, and the cycle continues. So the way to break the cycle is to stay in the present moment without being in denial. This is just one tool to be able to shift that. All right, I'm happy to take questions right now. This is a question and answer. If you have a question, you write the word question in all caps, please. Then write your question based on what I'm talking about. If you don't do that, there's a good chance I'm going to react negatively to you. I'm going to psychoanalyze you, or I'm going to give you a hard time for not following directions, etc., etc., etc. So if you want to get the best response out of me, my suggestion is to follow those directions. Write the word question in all caps so I can see it, and then write your question. All right. Let's see what else. Gabriela Camarillo, why do you say debt? I'm just telling you what the word means. Debt, debt is something that you owe. That's karma. Karma is nothing. And again, I don't know who this is, Gabriela. So again, write the word question, please. So debt is karma. Karma is nothing more than the consequences of the actions that you have taken. It's a debt. It's something that you owe. You will get, if you operate from your soul, the end result of that is that there will be positive consequences for you to experience. So you either owe to the universe or the universe owes you. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. He is a certified Thunder Wizard astrologer. You can go to his website. I have trained him in my form of Vedic astrology, which is very powerful, and he himself has even learned beyond what I've taught him. So go check him out, vincent.thunderwizard.com. Anybody who gets certified by me and you come on to the live chat, I'll do the same for you. Say, hey, I'm here. And you remind me to give out your website, which I provide for you, by the way. So if you want to learn about that, you can go to, I think this is it, astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com. Or you can just go astrology.thunderwizard.com. I think that's the one. Anyway, it's been a long time. All right, so Landon Morris, not a question. Not a question. Agent of the Universe, honest experience. So again, I only want two things. I want your honest question and your honest feelings. So let's see if I want to talk about this. He says, I've been becoming more and more powerful, but letting go more and more. It's all thanks to your practices. I was able to find like-minded friends to assist in my evaluation. Okay, well, congratulations on it. I'm happy that that's working for you. I don't see any other questions here. So we can just leave it at that. If you don't ask questions, I got to either play a video or do something to entertain you. So let us watch this for now. It's this Celestial Qigong, which I'm going to make another push for. But I'll play this, and then if you have any questions, write it out. And if not, we'll just call it a day. Hi, I'm Michael Denny of SpiritTao.com, and this is Celestial Negung Part 1. Celestial Negung means that this is power that is descending from heaven. And the idea is that we are all microcosms of the entire universe. You are the entire universe, and everything around you is simply the projection. You are looking within yourself. So when you look up into the stars at night, you're actually looking deep within your own body. When you look at the sun, the moon, the trees, the flowers, you're looking within yourself. This is Negung. And so what we're doing is we're simply releasing that infinity from within us. You are tapping into and releasing the power that is within our own body, our own cells. our own organs. So one of the reasons that I'm making this DVD is in the hope that the essence and the spirit of the teaching of the Shang-Ching arts can be taught to the world at large, and it is my hope that the core essence of what the Shang-Ching tradition is will continue to live and grow and evolve. As we move on into the Aquarian age, everything is changing. I don't need to tell you that. The entire world is changing, and what we are seeing now is that if people hold on to external things, they are very challenged in life. And those who are making the transition into the next phase that we are moving into in the world as we approach 2012, those who look within and find their source of strength from within, those are the people who are getting the most out of life and will make the transition into the next phase of evolution most comfortably. It is my belief that the Shang-Ching tradition is one method whereby human beings can evolve into the next level of being in the most comfortable fashion and be able to take advantage of the rapid, energetic, mental, and spiritual changes that are going on in the world today. All right, so that was 12 years ago. 12 years ago. That was when I first released Celestial Qigong, 12 years ago. If I could tell you what was going on when I created that, that was one of the first things that I released. My life was very different then than it is now. Let's see here. So Vincent.thunderwizard.com question: how do I operate from the assumption that I am an infinite God when I feel like a limited human? Well, you just put two different phrases in there, or words in there. One is operate from, and the other is feel like. Who said those things have to be the same? Who says that you have to feel like something in order to operate like something? So this is where everything is backwards. I'm sure you've heard me say it before, Vincent. I'm happy to repeat myself. But remember how WYRD works, right? So WYRD is we're living in the present moment. In the present moment, we make choices. Those choices will determine our actions and our beliefs. To believe something is a choice. It's not a feeling, it's a choice. So you make the choice determines your action determines your consequences then create your narrative, your past. You want to change your future, you change your past. How do you change your past? By changing your present, because that's all you have. By making the choice an assumption is a choice. I didn't say believe it. I didn't say feel it. I didn't say spend time feeling like an omnipotent God. You're not going to feel like an omnipotent God much of the time. I didn't say that. I said operate from that assumption. Take actions from that assumption. Religious people would say have faith. So you don't have to feel like something to act like something. So if you operate from the assumption that you create everything, then the first thing you do is you look at your life and you go, I'm responsible for all of this. I created all of this. So you take full responsibility. Nobody's done it to you. Even if you were born into a situation, we're all born into some situation. I just shared a story about my parents, which was not a pleasant situation. I could say that, I'm a victim of circumstance. That, I didn't pick my parents. I was, they had sex and I was born. It was completely out of my hands. And while that's all true on paper, how can I change the narrative so that I am fully responsible? Well, then that must mean that my soul chose those parents so that I would have this challenge to overcome. That must have been something that I wanted to experience. And so you assume, you make the assumption that you are the omnipotent creator of your universe, and you take full responsibility for that, and then that's going to change the way you look at life. You're going to, if you don't know what to do about it, because that's a very common thing, you know, I created this, I don't understand it, I don't know how to fix it. That's a perfectly good place to be. But once you're in the space of, I am determined to change my experience of my life, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I know that I have the power. I just haven't figured out what that is yet. That's going to change the way that you look at everything. You're not going to feel like a victim of circumstance. You're not going to feel like there's no hope. You're not going to feel like there's no options. Because if you're an infinite being, then you can change the rules so that you can create options. It gets you thinking outside of the box. So how do you operate from that assumption? You just operate from that assumption. The feelings will come later. But this is what has, what monotheist, Abrahamic monotheism has done over the past couple thousand years. Our ancestors understood this. Our ancestors understood that your life was a result of the actions that you take. It wasn't about how you felt. But when we started getting into Abrahamic monotheism, accepting Jesus and, all that, then people have it backwards. And, I deal with this all the time. Tell me how to overcome this feeling. Tell me how to, get rid of my doubt. Well, the assumption is that if you feel good, then you'll be able to take actions. But if you don't feel like it, then you won't be able to take actions. And I always respond and I say, when did I say you were supposed to get over your fear? When did I say you were supposed to get over your doubt, your hatred, your misery? When did I tell you you were supposed to get over that feeling? I've never told you that. I've simply told you to take actions that are constructive and take you towards what you truly want, regardless of how you feel. So that's how. Hopefully I answered your question there. Impetus correspondent. Question: does operating from the assumption that you are an infinite God have the ability to improve your physical health in any way? I'm having a hard time with that question because the answer is in your question. I mean, you're not asking me the right question. If I say yes, how does that help you? If I say no, how does that help you? If you're asking that question because you have a specific physical issue you want to improve on, I don't know. I need something more specific to be able to help you. The obvious answer is yes. I need more, be more revealing in your question so that I can be more helpful to you. All right, is that it? No other questions today? All right, so the 90-day challenge, if you go to thunderwizard.com, click around for Warrior 90-day challenge and subscribe. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. You'll find videos on there. Scroll down until you see Warrior 90-day level 1. Start there and just simply press play and follow the directions. You can follow along with me. This will get you in touch with the lightning power that surrounds your heart, which is the hidden power that, to my knowledge, only the Mao Shan truly understood and mastered. And this will give you, it will change the way that you feel, and it will help you to get rid of the narrative, the old narrative that isn't your authentic soul. And of course, we have the Manifestation Mastery course, which is also there at thunderwizard.com. You can subscribe to that, but I suggest that you subscribe here first because you'll get access to this and this at the same time. Another question, Dark. Question: have you experienced anything relating to these military enforced COVID lockdowns in Australia? What does that have to do with what I'm talking about? I'm talking about something altogether different. I mean, why are you wasting my time with something totally unrelated? So You followed directions by writing the word question, but you didn't follow the directions I put out, which is ask according to something that I teach. I'm giving you a lecture on something. Ask about that. Ask eternal questions. Have you experienced anything relating to these military enforced COVID lockdowns in Australia? If I say yes, how does that benefit you? That question, are you doing that so that you and I can then engage in some discussion about the damn military is coming in and doing it to us? Is that what you want? Do you want me to create that narrative for you so that you can feel victimized by proxy? Because if I start talking about COVID lockdowns and the pandemic and they're doing it, is that what you want from me? You want me to co-sign your victim mentality by feeling superior, by talking about is that what you want? If I say yes, how does that help you? If I say no, that I haven't experienced that, how does that help you? Are you going to be upset because I didn't co-sign some kind of victim mentality where the government is doing it to you? Ask questions that are going to be helpful for you. Ask questions that are going to help your eternal soul. Ask questions that are going to give you power. Even if my assumption is correct and you're asking me that so that you're manipulating me into co-signing your victim mentality about how they're doing it. Even if I do that, that's going to be temporary. Nobody's going to be talking about that in 6 months or a year. This COVID thing is going to figure itself out on some level, and life is going to go back to relatively normal. And then what value does your question have? Vincent's question, how do I operate from the assumption that I'm an infinite God when I feel like a limited human? That has value 10 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. He can be asking that question up until the last day of his life, and he will benefit from that question. How does anybody benefit from your question, Dark? My question to you, Dark, is, are you doing the practices? Are you doing any of these things? Even the stuff on the free practices on the channel? That's what I'm here to do. This is what I'm about. This is my only reason for being here. If I don't give you these exercises and give you access to this energy, then I have no value. And there's no reason for me to be walking this planet, or at least having this business. Okay? All right, so I'm not going to answer your question because it's a meaningless question to me. So I encourage you to spend more time on the channel. I encourage you to do the practices if you haven't already, and to start thinking in ways that help you. You can do whatever the hell you want. I want to be a part of people's empowerment. Your question doesn't empower anybody. At best, it's gossip. All right, anything else? No other questions? All right, so we can leave it at that. We have a lot of people watching anyway. All right, so that's it. I'm just going to leave it there for today. We'll see where things go. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and do the work. All right. I'll look forward to seeing you guys later. Yeah, that's it. All right. See you next time.